up again. I just started up again. I'm sorry, guys. My obs crashed. I don't know why. I have no idea why.
You suck.
But it did. Man, come.
It's your fault.
Anyway. Alright.
Why. There we go. Now I just went offline on this stream.
Yeah, I know. Okay, either way, alright, so yeah, we've covered a lot of different aspects of what we'd like infantry to do. I don't know if... did you have anything that you might have wanted to specifically contribute? We might have covered it already, but anything you wanted to... in terms of how infantry are used and what their role in-game would be, things like that. I'm talking to Smash, by the way.
Fine.
I do, but I'm not prepared to answer that right now. Still
Oh, okay.
Computer going and everything.
Oh, it's cool, it's cool. You know what, we're gonna go on.
Alright. I'll throw in something. I want to see bunkers removed. I definitely want to see the ability for infantry to neutralize stuff removed.
Oh, yes, okay,
The
that's
stuff
actually...
that captures things should not be the same thing that neutralizes it. That's just
I said that.
Doesn't even
Were
make
you-
sense.
I've been
But
saying-
Were you distracted and
I
playing when I said that? Either way, okay.
No.
I think, did I say this to you already? Because
Yeah.
before, this is one thing that I also wanted to suggest, but I never got around to it on forums, is saying that bunkers should be removed, and then you should just add, a kind of a, not an equivalent, but like a sensible amount to the HP pool of the base HP of outposts. Like, extending the life of outposts with bunkers. Ah, well, that's, okay, why not? So, let's talk.
I mean, bunkers, they're technically like a legacy thing from the days of having to stop people
Exactly.
from choosing your outpost.
They're an old mechanic, really.
Yeah,
It
but
was
I
just
mean,
that
like,
infantry spam thing. Now that we have the
but
proper
there's
mechanic
uses
it.
for it besides just protecting your infantry. Like, when I go and neutralize an outpost and I use level 1 creeps to capture it, later in the game when the enemy starts harassing me and stuff, I'm an odd player, so I do bring like brutes, but I queue up brutes and I put them in those bunkers, so when they go to neutralize it, when they kill an infantry in that outpost, they're getting a fucking brute after, excuse my language.
Yeah.
I got 4 brutes there.
Yeah, but it also makes the outpost exponentially harder to take.
Yeah,
But I'd rather be able to... Actually, right now, it's easier to kill the units that are bunkered outside the outpost than it is to kill the ones inside the outpost. So I'd say, if anything, remove the bonus, the armor or health bonus or whatever, from the bunkers. Leave the mechanic in place, but remove all the bonuses. And then if people choose to, they can bunker stuff. But there's no real added bonus because you can easily kill the infantry sitting outside the outpost really quickly.
Yeah,
Well-
but when people attack outposts, they technically want to take out the outpost, not the bunkered infantry.
Yeah.
So
But
they
the
put
bunkered
all the
infantry
fire.
run it.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. He did kill the infantry, the bunkered infantry. But it still extends the life of the outpost, which I'm not necessarily okay with. I would be okay with being able to directly replace an infantry. Let's just say you have level 1 creeps in your outpost, and I'll put the brutes in the bunkers like you were saying. But right now, you have to wait for someone to neutralize or knock down one of those infantry before you can actually refill it with brutes. I think it wouldn't be that big of a deal if maybe within a certain proximity of an outpost that's completely captured, we allow a T-command to directly replace infantry if you so choose to do so. Something like that. I mean, it's not a huge thing, but I mean, maybe that will...
The only thing I worry about is if it was too easy to neutralize outposts, and then you have a game of just pure harass all the time, people doing drops and nothing but drops.
Well, that's one reason I wanted the base HP of outposts to go up a balanced amount, not huge, not too little, but enough so that won't be a huge deal, like it won't be a huge problem,
But I think the mechanic is outdated. Basically, it's not needed anymore. I see no reason to keep it, even though you made the point about having stuff to be replaced. You can still replace infantry in it. I think you don't need it.
I really like the fact that it blocks doors. I'm okay with that. The bunkers can stay for that purpose, and I would be completely fine with that. What if infantry in those bunkers did not replace the infantry inside the bulbs that got knocked down? They just were there, maybe to be held, to have a small damage resist, to defend the outpost or something like that, but they didn't walk in to relight the bulbs, and instead they could just...
What?
Like if they're in the bunker...
Well, I'm just thinking about that. How would infantry get in it if someone blocking the infantry from getting in? They can't pass through bunkers, can they?
Yeah, they can.
Can I propose a hacky compromise on this one? Reduce all outposts down to only one bunkered door.
Yeah,
Doors
I was
on all
actually gonna
sides,
suggest-
but just one bunker.
So you can replace the infantry, but
Why?
Yeah,
So you
I
can
was
only
gonna say-
have one.
But why though?
what if that one bunker like instantly improves the infantry?
But why would
So
you
it's like a
do
slot
that if you
change.
just have no bunkers? If you're gonna have one, you might as well just have.
Yeah,
one.
I mean, like, why? Yeah.
Because,
then the
there's
slots-
certain ones that you want to actually like have in queue next in case that outpost gets attacked.
Yeah, but it'd only be one. Like if someone's harassing your
No.
your what?
Sorry, the suggestion I think was like that the bunker, instead of functioning like a bunker it does now, it functions as more of a slot to replace the infantry inside.
There's
one
not
slot.
much
But that's what
difference,
they do.
dude. There is
All
not
the
much
slots, so you
difference
just keep
between
on
that.
slotting it, and it will just
There's not much
not
difference
following.
between that and now. Yeah, I'm not following, and I give this my
huge
minus
difference
one.
because it instantly said not.
Minus
it doesn't
one.
Wait for it to get neutral.
Minus one.
Oh. Well, that I don't know. That's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, well,
So-
Keep that function. Next topic.
in the interest of time, we can keep going. We could keep going with this topic for another hour or two at least, but we could probably touch on infantry again in a future episode. I would like to do that, actually. Maybe we could talk about it a little bit after, and I could record it or something like that. Either way, let's go to the next topic, which is about respawn and buyback. Likely the truest action RTS ever made, AirMech's pacing is very different from that of traditional MOBA games. This fact becomes very apparent anytime you die in the middle of a crucial battle. Units without mech support is like food without water. At first you're fine, but eventually it will kill you. Respawn times can range from just under 10 seconds early game to upwards of 30 seconds late game. This is most apparent in 1v1, where a mech kill can frequently turn the tide of a game. BonGe, how large should the penalty for dying be in AirMech, and how can the respawn process be altered for the better? This is what you get for not reviewing the topic, like I told you.
No, I looked at it. I just didn't have an opinion on it. I mean, like, it's parts. So parts. You have all that stuff, right? That's the big problem. Are we talking about buyback? Or are we talking about the recost?
I want to just specifically talk about the effects of dying and the long respawn time in AirMech versus when you see other games like traditional MOBAs, you can sit out for 30 seconds and it won't be that big of a deal, where in AirMech 5, 10, 15 seconds is sometimes crippling, depending on the situation.
Well, I'm sorry, Bonge, but Bonge already said the answer. It's because parts.
Well,
Also, I wouldn't say in other games it's not a big deal. It's only still a big deal. In AirMech, it's less. It's less so just because the faster you move. The second you're back, you're in the field in 10 seconds. In less than that, 5 seconds you're there.
Well-
and you're already doing stuff.
it
No,
varies.
that's not true.
You go, Insomniac. Bungie is useless.
Shut up.
Especially late game, I mean, it makes a huge difference because the later the game goes, the longer your respawn time and I believe your respawn cost becomes. So when you do something like, I don't know who'd be crazy enough to do like a Beppo bomber or something with all the parts that could increase your respawn time, but it's so detrimental every time you die. It's kind of excessive to the point where I wish there was something changed. I personally don't enjoy the fact that on top of the delay with the buyback button now, where you can't just spam it and spend all your credits, the credit cost is 2,000 instead of 1,000. And I'm a very risky player sometimes, and I don't mind paying an extra. If they increase the buyback price to 2,000, fine, so be it, but then let me spam it. Let me drain all my money to pay for respawning.
Well,
But instead, I'm stuck waiting for the button to light up again so I can use it, pay 2,000 to come back because I have like respawn time of like 20 seconds. And I feel like it's excessive, and there could be other penalties like a build speed penalty for your units or something for X amount of time, like because you died, the speed gets reduced temporarily.
in something about that, they had to add delay. Because I remember when I was playing with the controller, and I want to respawn faster, I would push it, it would drain my money, but the time wouldn't go up. And it is becoming a problem. I would be wasting money but not getting any value out of it.
So it's
Well,
about
plus
base,
people
it's
were just
a
complaining
bug.
because people could spam the buyback button and get back into the game faster than they thought was necessary. But then the price also went up from 1,000 to 2,000 at some point.
I mean, honestly, I prefer just removing it outright because I like it should be like if you die, that should be penalty enough. If you have all these parts on that extended by like an extra 30 seconds, that's your fault for having all those parts on.
I personally think it caters to the team that's ahead. You can, because you're ahead, you can have more income. Because if you usually when you're ahead, you have more outpost control. You have more income. You can take larger risks, which is a little funny because the team that's behind is the one that needs to take more risks, not the one that's ahead. The team that's ahead can easily, safely play, build up their army because they have much more income. But once again, because they have much more income, they can hit that buyback button. So I don't really like the fact that it's sort of an advantage for teams that are winning because they have more money. Money makers. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree because because if you die, you don't have that buyback button. You have to wait there for 30 seconds. That allows the game to like turn over to the other side. It gives them like a chance to come back.
Okay.
Right,
That's a good point.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it should be removed, basically. Sorry.
So one thing I wanted to touch on when it came to this subject is how detrimental, like, sometimes you get out of a battle and you barely have a sliver of life. Sometimes you have a nice chunk of life. Some people leave just to be safe ahead of time, and just so they won't die. But then there's those times that you barely die, and really, should we care that those cases are not that far off, but they are actually huge because it's the difference between a respawn time and not a respawn time. So I'm going to give this to Smash. How detrimental should a death actually be in AirMech? Maybe different across formats or something like that.
Well, in terms of time, it's extremely detrimental, but it all depends on what point in the game you're at. So like late game, obviously, time is going to matter. I can't say how many times I've lost a game and seen people lose games by starting to push, getting killed, and then just having all their units walk into a death trap, basically, because they're dead. I really dislike the respawn button altogether. It's bugly, it's unattractive, it doesn't work properly, and it should just go away. I mean, the talk of like bringing in other possible negatives, like making it just credits or making build speed reduction or something like that, we could do that, but I'd rather just keep it simpler and have it be time based and maybe just a credit hit in general.
So I mean, obviously it's going to be simple.
I just have to say I agree about the late game death versus the early game death. I think maybe they should look at changing the way it scales up.
Yeah, that's the thing, is even now, like, the credit of it, the button in general doesn't really matter. Like late game, like if it's a long game, you're only building so much in general. You're gonna have higher credits than normal unless you're doing credit sinks into like making a bunch of Goliaths or something.
Right,
no matter what, like the time still hurts you.
Well, do you know? Does anybody, I guess Insane or Smash, really theoretically, but do either of you know like what the actual buyback button timing is? It's like once you hit it, it'll delay for what, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, before you can hit it again.
That's like 1.5 seconds or a little bit more than that. It was enough to eliminate the bug that Ken was dealing with, basically.
Okay, so basically, I'm kind of trying to think of like if you hit the button, if you spam it as fast as possible, because of that delay, you will only be able to remove a certain percentage of your respawn, sort of, or like a certain amount of time. Like for every 1.5 seconds that passes, you can take away a second if you spam it as fast as possible. So you'll only be able to reduce your respawn by, math is hard, 40, 35%, something like that, a third.
Or we could just, like, I just hate the button in general. I don't like sitting there hitting a button because I was stupid and I died. Like, if anything, I would think, like, make the button, I mean, if people like the button and being able to buy back sooner out of their respawn or whatever, both sides, just make it a one-time thing. You die, in the first 5 minutes of the game, and, it's X amount of credits. You die 15, 20 minutes in, and then above 30, it's like, there are different amounts of credits. You hit it once and that's it. You still have a respawn time. You can't get back into the game, super fast or anything. It actually makes a difference.
Oh, I like that. I like that. The button once and just reduce your time by X percentage.
Yeah, for X amount of credits. Or if we could even take it one step further and be like, either it's X amount of credits or you take a hit on you cap or something like that.
Maybe you can tie it into an upgrade, actually, with the creep upgrade and make it like a faster respawn upgrade.
As like a addition to parts or something?
No, just like like how the creep ability upgrade and like the mech, it's like more useless. Yeah, you could probably replace that for that.
Well,
yeah, I mean, if you plan on playing really aggressively, that would be totally worth it. So,
I'd like to just see some more parts of pilots or something that maybe like really reduce your respawn time, but increase the respawn cost, or I don't know, something. I like what you did with push the button once, and you have to be able to pay X amount of credits, and then you get your respawn time reduced by like a third or something, and that's it, just one button push.
Okay, well, we have a little bit of chat here. Wolf Cub is saying that buyback button, if you remove it, you should nerf AA spam. Or, like, I guess nerf AA in general, and I guess because spamming anything will make it dramatically more effective, then that's something to consider. I kind of, when I hear that, I think back to what was it like before the respawn button was the buyback button was introduced to the game.
I should say I wasn't here for that, by the way.
Yeah,
it's simple. I mean,
Okay.
we just sat there and screamed at the screen. That's what we did.
That's what I expect in most games, because that's the way it is now in games.
I personally, I've never liked it. When you die, I was kind of trying to make a point earlier that sometimes the difference between not dying and dying is so minuscule, and should you be punished for making a small error versus a larger error, something like that. And unfortunately, in the nature of this game, and any game like that, the answer is yes. It's a hard line. It's a hard line. You die, you get punished. I kind of don't like that, but that's how it needs to be. So should saving your credits up benefit that error? It's like an error protection kind of thing. Like, I don't know. It's a concept that I've never really liked. So, meh.
Well, one thing that's different now is like that you can go negative when you die. So we could say remove the buyback button, increase death penalty cost maybe, but I feel like the time penalty is the worst part of it, not being able to be out there on the map.
Oh yeah, that's definitely it. I mean, obviously, and like Smash said, when you get to late game, a lot of times, especially in stalemate games, you're floating credits, so it's not a big deal at all. So, yeah. All right, guys.
No.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm done. Go ahead. Next topic, whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't know that this, and yeah, Smash is mentioning specific death penalties for 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3. I think, well, that's sort of an actual something on my questions topic list that I kind of wanted to change, or to touch on, like different stats across the different formats. But yeah, I think we should probably avoid that for now. It's an idea. Maybe you guys want to think about it. Maybe anyone watching wants to think about it, just so you can have a better grasp of what we might be talking about in the future. But for right now,
make a forum thread.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
So right now we're going to move to the last full topic of the night, which is going to be parts, pilots and items, theory and balance. So one of the biggest hot button topics in the game is the issue of balancing parts, pilots, and items. These simple statistical changes can have dramatic impacts on outcome, and many of these factors are touted as broken by many players across the board. Specific combinations of positives versus negatives are usually cited as the problem, with improper negatives and imbalanced positives considered to be the general theme of many parts today. What is your theory, Smash, behind how these game-changing elements should be balanced, and should there be different approaches to parts versus pilots versus items?
Yeah, like as I said in the previous episode, I really dislike having negatives in general. It just makes it harder to balance. I don't like having so many positives and negatives for different things that you can't. I don't really know what the word is exactly, but you can't exactly tell what the positives and negatives are on some things. You know, it's like minus 5% energy capacity. Like, why even have that there? I've been trying to figure out, talking with James a lot, about basically if we remove negatives and had only positives, more set skills and such based per mechs, where you could build upon them more like a MOBA style, how that would actually work out. But I don't know, I haven't really set my ideas on anything yet. I don't really have any numbers or anything to throw out. And I know a lot of people like having negatives too, but with so many different parts modifiers, it just makes it really convoluted, and it's really bad for new players because everyone just goes for the most attack. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, everyone knows. New players, when they get in the game, they're like, attack damage, that's what I want, because that's what'll kill things. But yeah, for more high tier play, I'd rather have very, very specific parts modifiers and have it be strictly that. You know, like if you wanted to go tanky, get all tanky items, but they only, you know, pertain to a tanky style mech, which is going to be slower than the rest of them or something like that. But it's just been something I've been thinking about.
Bonge, you said +1 for separate rules. Are you talking about parts versus pilots versus items, or what we were talking about before?
I think I was talking about before, so it's just like, yeah, that's irrelevant now.
Oh, okay.
Moving on.
Insomniac.
Okay. This is something that's been something that I focus on once in a while. I've made posts probably for a year and a half about parts, or for as long as parts have existed, basically. I'm really big on stat diversity. One of the things you see with parts right now is a lot of the negatives are repetitive. It's death costs, respawn time, it's move speed in the air. We finally started getting parts where we got energy capacity, or small numbers for auto repair rate, or gun parts that actually deal damage more in the air versus the ground. And it would be cool to see one that, you know, really reduces the air damage while buffing the ground damage or something like that. But in a general sense, I just want more diversity in stats. I want some more stats that we maybe probably don't have yet. They added in Total Biscuit recently as a pilot, and he has a bonus for when you level up, you get more health back. It moves you back towards the days when you leveled up, you got full health and energy restore. Now it's a partial, but with him you get a good amount more health. And so bringing in other stats, whether they're detrimental ones, like more negative transform speed for armor parts instead of just move speed, or stuff like that. Like I think I mentioned before, there's a lot of stats out there that people don't consider. Like, I came up with a build where I have an Osprey with the Osprey ability with the auto repair rate, where all mechs have to not move for 3 seconds, but Osprey's ability is different and improves that a lot. I can have plus 81% auto repair rate. What you want to do with that after you have it, who knows? But it's a possibility there, and stuff like acceleration. We don't have gun parts that nerf or buff piercing right now. That's something I'd like to see added eventually. But again, stats we don't have, or maybe something that's really out there that I really want to see is maybe something that affects. You're talking about the modifiers for when you level up, how much certain stats get increased each time you level up. What if there was a part that had a lot of downsides, but it had, you know, a +1 percentage towards your airspeed or towards your ability damage or something. I love ability specific parts, but like anything where there's a good trade-off and we don't rely on the same stats over and over again. And one part that really drives me nuts a little bit, and I mentioned it I think before we start talking, was the parts that we already have. Some of them need changing up. There's the Paladin hammer right now, where one hammer part increases the damage and increases the recharge time between throws or before you throw, and the other one reverses those, where it makes it so you can throw the hammer slightly faster. But 6% holding down right click, you're not going to be able to notice the actual difference for when you can actually release the hammer. There's no animation. There's no like flash or anything that tells you when you can actually release the hammer even. So that 6% change isn't going to do anything. I'd rather see something where the hammer itself moves faster or something like that. That's how I feel. And items in general, I feel like items are just basically parts that people have a stigma about from being veterans and stuff, where they say, oh, items have to be small stats only, parts are better, and then pilots are the best. I agree with pilots are the best stats, the biggest stats, and parts are good, but I don't agree that items have to be bad. We have extended Atlas, we have all the different Higgs alternative stuff. I love the fact that we have alternate items and stuff like that, and ones that have big bonuses and big drawbacks, and I don't think items have to be limited to small stats only.
So diversity. I mean, right now all the parts. Yeah, all the parts and pilots, kind of what you were mainly implying, are sort of limited within this realm, except for I guess the Mark IV pilots, which are Mark IV parts, which are a little absurd. Frequently, they have the same sort of set of limitations. Like they're all, not that big, especially items, not huge, big. Differences. So they're all sort of the same-ish, except again the obvious standouts that definitely need attention. But I kind of want to go back to what Smash was talking about before. But last week when he said that he leans toward that parts shouldn't really have negatives, that he would like them to just always be positive. At first I was like, that's a bad idea. Just because you're kind of stuck in this mentality that we're here in AirMech, we're veterans, we know how things work. There's positives and negatives, and there's choices between them. There's pros and cons. But I kept thinking about it, and I kind of like it, especially what he sort of mentioned earlier today, which is it'll make things significantly easier to balance, significantly less complicated to. It'll definitely prevent many things, or almost everything, from being broken. Frequently, parts are broken. We want to tweak the stats, and they just don't get used, or they don't really make a difference. Really high-tier players know how to part out and pilot a build so that you don't really see very substantial negatives, except for and in terms of positives versus no negatives, if we went in that direction, how different really would it be in that world? Yeah. Bungie, anything?
The one thing that I've thought about a lot about is like the downside I see to it is if we couldn't get it figured out right away, everyone would go towards, airspeed and attack damage for most mechs, and then others would go for like heal rate and things like that, just for Osprey specifically or something. But and someone has significant disadvantages if we really couldn't get the balance down. But I'm not fully against negatives either. Like I was thinking about lately, like maybe having it to where the negatives were far simpler than the positives. Like you could have tons of positives on whatever you wanted and such, but having very specific negatives would help people understand more exactly what they're doing. And currently, the main issue that I have with all these parts and everything is a lot of the parts could be totally bugged, but it's not really easy to tell because there's so many parts and such basically playing into it, plus your pilots, plus your items and such like that. So it makes
combinations.
it really, yeah. So it makes it really difficult to try and figure that part.
Can I just interject? RUI was saying about the veterans, and they know what to part, and they basically know how to cancel stuff out. And I feel like that is an issue because of you can make some really strong pilot combinations for certain mechs and stuff, but if you actually had like diversity in the types of stats you used, you wouldn't be able to cancel out these negatives the way you do right now. Like I'm not in favor of only positives. I think there should be a trade-off, but the problem right now is that we're limited to like a few different stats, and people know how to cancel out those negatives because there's not any other options anyways.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, because like in most like MOBAs, RTSs, you take other hits basically, normally not negatives as far as the games that I've played, but normally it's like it's a credit sink for you to get that attack damage item because you don't go into the game with it. So like I definitely see where you're coming from. Like there should be a negative to it. I just don't like the negatives that we have.
I mean, I could see how you just make it positive because you said like vets know how to do it, but newer players don't. But if everything was positive, the new players say, "I want attack damage boost," and they will get their attack damage boost, no strings attached. It's very easier for them to understand.
Yeah, and the problem is now is like tons of new players do this. Like I watch just as many new player games as I do veteran games, just because like new player interaction is like my thing right now. But every single one of them will go in and they'll pick like Beppo Warthog. They're like, Warthog, he looks freaking awesome. He does all this attack damage. He's got this badass minigun, and they'll buy him and they'll put Beppo in there, and like they're getting killed left and right because they're so freaking slow and they can't figure out why. And they're like, and they get mad at the game and all this. And it's like if there was a way to make that simpler, like I feel like in a lot of games, like even if you were to build your character totally freaking stupid, if you built it all in the same direction, at least one part of it is still viable. But there's a lot of directions that you can build mechs in this game where it's completely dumb. Like there's no reason you could never do anything at an advantage at certain points. Like and that's the one issue that I've been seeing.
Yeah, I can see that happening because Beppo has that giant speed reduction. And speed in this game is so important, and that's why people tend to go Lexi and Raven, for example, because they know that speed will help them. But new players don't know this, and you're right, they get frustrated because of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd really like to see a negative transform speed on some of those pilots.
Also, Beppo itself, I don't think it's very balanced. I mean, I don't see a lot of Beppo. So that might also be another issue, that it's speed, yeah, exactly, like everyone says. Transform speed is a very big thing in AirMech, because you use it to micro, and units is a huge part of the game.
I think it's balanced conceptually, but because of the way the game is played and what's important in the game, it's not. For example, respawn costs, if you died all the time, every part would be balanced, but because we don't, it's not. So, I mean, I like the logic behind a lot of the parts and pilots and stuff, but you have to also think of how the game plays and implementation wise, and maybe that is also a telltale sign of how the game should change to begin with. If certain things are conceptually balanced but don't get used all the time in the game, maybe there's something core that we need to consider changing versus the random statistical change. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying this is the case, but it's something to think about.
I definitely think it's stat based, and it's something that we need to go back, dig down into the core of it to really understand what's causing it. But I don't think it'll be that complicated. It's not going to be like something where James and Ken will freak out on me for basically trying to ask for this gigantic functionality change. But it is interesting to see like how high tier players go. Well, actually, anyone that really starts to get towards the higher tier, or even just generally good at the game, like they always look at the same basic things. Like they look at airspeed modifiers, they look at energy consumption modifiers, and they look at attack damage modifiers. And like beyond that, like that is almost like 90% of what people choose to pick when they really know what's going on.
Agreed. And it's yeah.
Wait, also,
what?
You mean
it goes had a part on sorry. a quick part on like the negatives talk. I think that negatives. I was thinking about what CarbonSMASH said, and he said like he didn't like having negatives just because it made it hard to balance and whatnot. I started to agree with it because we've always had this idea that we want to balance it so well that having no parts is potentially as good as having parts, and I think that's almost we could kind of throw that out. I mean, it's not a huge deal either way because it also makes it a little bit of like scaling for players and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
more of that all parts, if they're balanced, they will all have downsides. May not be negatives, but they'll have downsides to each part. So as long as they're balanced, I think they're okay, even if they're balanced and not balanced towards having no parts at all, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, because like you look at almost all the mechs besides like actually almost all of them, when they hit level 7, they're all on level playing field with each other, just for different reasons. Even with no parts, no pilots. They all either they have, higher energy, like the Osprey can heal max units, or like the Angel has wicked sniper damage. Even without parts, that's still a ton of damage. And the Striker and the Helix both have their ults. It's like they're still on par with each other. You just have to work to get there. The idea of the parts and all that is that you don't have to work as hard to get there.
I have to say that the Saucer Ultimate is a bit different than all those, though, because it's dependent on units and credits available to teleport.
Yeah, I like
that's
that.
True. I just never play Saucer, so I always forget about it.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's not healing, it's not damage.
I do have to add that to another put that in the topic list. Anyway, okay, so yeah, I did want to touch on what Bungie said. Like, one of the things that we the hardcore veteran community like to say is a no pilot build should be just as viable as a parted out build because the negatives should balance out the positives. And I think if we still continue with this track, that probably should be true in a way. Maybe not so extreme, but to a point, yes. One of the biggest problems with making it just completely positive and throwing that idea out of the window would be the complaint that new players don't have a chance and all that stuff, and it's all going to be pay to win and all that stuff. Well, if we keep it not pay to win, which is not very difficult because it's pretty much right now not pay to win, almost every pilot and all that stuff is accessible. It should be fine because that's the theory behind AirMech. Is it's not pay to win, but it's 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 pretty much grind not pay grind, but pay for convenience. So you don't have to grind it out. And honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest, new players, within a month or two of their of experience, are even with a completely viable, extremely parted out build, will not stand one lick of chance against any real good experienced AirMech veteran that has no parts, no pilot, and just has a Longhorn Seeker. You know what I mean? Everyone knows that, and everyone knows how it works. So that argument is not necessarily that strong. It might be in other games. I'm not really experienced with all those other games, but in AirMech, you need knowledge, experience, and that muscle memory, I guess is a good way to put it, to really succeed in the game. So, not that big of a deal if you want to consider it that way. And this is one of those, just like Infantry, that we can just continue going on and on. But I'm going to open it up to anyone that wants to throw in anything else right at the end. Go.
Kill parts.
Kill parts. That's the last thing that was said in the parts discussion. Moving on to the first viewer question, which is by Blast to Bits, which is regarding Neos versus Flak AA. Insomniac, if and how Flackers are the bane... Oh god, that wasn't even a question, was it? I should have reviewed that a little bit better, but okay. Are Flackers the bane of Neos? How are they, if they are, and can possible solutions be found?
Well, it's more of a rhetorical question because Neo has a low armor. I think Neo has the lowest armor of all the mechs.
We did get that confirmed, yes.
So that plus its level 7 ultimate missile redirect ability that makes it a complete counter to Seekers, leaves Flacker and Hat as the hard counter to Neo. And Flacker, since it's a Flacker specific question, I'll stick with just Flacker. It's a light unit, or medium unit, whatever you want to call it. The things that you can obviously do to deal with it is the passive armor ability. I don't know why people don't invest in that passive armor ability right away for Neo. It is so valuable and it makes such a difference, especially with 3 points in. Again, pilots always matters. If you're playing a Raven, Neo, you need to part out armor and all that. But a couple other things you can do, obviously, is creepers, bombs, that kind of stuff. I mean, flackers aren't a heavy armor unit. And one other thing, this is just a side thing that I think people should try out once in a while. The Blade Guardians with Neo, while cloaking, you can stand right next to enemy units and deal damage with them. Deal damage with the Blade Guardians to the enemy units, and you don't become decloaked or anything. You can just go stand there and chill out. Team game, I'm hoping someone will try it now that I'm bringing it up, but 3 Neos, all using Blade Guardians, cloaked, you could probably wipe out people's clusters if they don't stop you with their mechs themselves. And other than that, it's a stupid question.
I mean, the things you mentioned, these are usually units that players usually bring into a match anyways. So why is this question coming up? I mean, could there be something else affecting it?
No, flackers are more popular now. They've been used as a trending, at least. They've been trending for the past 2 months.
Is it just because they're spammable?
And heavy flacker number 1, and patrolling number 2, and they can move with your push number 3, and AA gets put back in the back of your lines number 4. So,
hey, patrolling's
and
not
they're
a thing.
guaranteed damage, unlike Seeker, where people circle and take no damage.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem with flackers is that guaranteed damage. So you're always gonna hit something. It's always gonna get damage done. So I think anything that has guaranteed damage needs to be balanced very carefully because it obviously it can scale to become absurd because you get in the range
but
of
it
it.
is.
It's just
I think Flacker is balanced.
Yeah, just look at Hat. I mean,
I think
Hat
it needs
used
a
to be
little. Sorry, what?
I mean, look at Hat. That used to be the bane of everyone, but it got balanced pretty well. But just people just go for the Seekers. You could spam them more, and they move.
Well, Seekers. The way to deal with Seekers now, but with Flackers, there's almost no way. The second you get too much Flackers, too many tanks to deal with it or whatever, the way to do anything, you're kind of just like waiting for artillery to mash it out.
Didn't Insane just explain how they deal with it?
No, I did not hear.
Creepers, bombs, Blade Guardians. I mean, these all things.
All that you have to jump in to deal with it, though. You gotta.
And artillery works too. Sorry.
Is artillery not something that the other team can do? Is boomers and bombers something that the other team can't do again? It's all something that.
Is flackers something I can't do?
It is, but I mean it's not, but then we go back to balance. If that's something that's so good that you can, the only way to deal with it is by using it yourself. Is that not a balance problem?
Right, but that's not a balance problem for flacker.
I think it needs a little bit less range. So Neo, that's sort of its problem. Neo has to like throw it into the Hornet's nest per se. It uses stasis. You have to jump in there, right? So you're getting in range of that AA in tanks, so you got to know what you're getting into when you use Neo. So it's part of Neo's basic core mechanic, I guess, that makes it bad for Flacker.
I mean, isn't Neo's also core mechanics that they could scout while undetected, so they can see the flackers and say, "Wow, I should probably jump in there."
Yeah, I was also going to wonder that. Does cloaking, does flackers not? Okay, they probably okay.
Oh, they shouldn't.
Well, that's lovely. I think, flackers are anti-mech, not just anti-Neo. It's just the most vulnerable thing to them is the Neo. Theoretically, it shouldn't be as bad because it flies so much faster, and it would get hit less if it doesn't fly by. But, I've frequently been seeing mixed opinions on how to use the Neo, especially in the recent days, where a lot of people have been talking about Neo and how it's underpowered. No, it's not underpowered, and all that stuff, and this is how you use it. It's really good at doing this. Neo on the ground is really awesome. I think Fat Asian Beast is one of the guys who really, really believes in ground Neo, and he's been kind of been the one posting most about how Neos should be, and he even contributed a question last week about it. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a problem. I think it's more of a delicate balance issue, personally. Maybe we should consider making the Neo and stuff, mechs across the spectrum, less squishy toward the lower end. Maybe push it up a little bit and compress the spectrum. So just so it's not, doesn't feel so broken. I mean, once you get a critical mass of Neos, of Neo. Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? But yeah, if you had a critical mass of Flackers,
That would be terrifying.
but yeah, if you had a critical mass of Flackers, it'll screw over almost every mech. I mean, yeah, tanky Paladin probably not as much, but that's one of the benefits of being the Paladin. But maybe it's more of a, I mean, I don't really have a direct answer to the question, and all of you have been skirting around it like crazy, I must admit. But what?
I take this moment real quick. I'm out of time for tonight, so I'd just like to say thank you for letting me chat, and I gotta run.
All right, thanks for participating, Insomniac. Everyone,
Bye.
make sure to recognize Insomniac, and yeah, man, thanks for coming.
See
you, man. Okay, so I mean, do you guys have anything specific? I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the bane of Neos. Maybe it's just because Neos are most affected by getting hit by AA. I mean, Seekers are useless. It kind of boils down to the ultimate too. I mean, once you get a critical mass of Seekers, the Neo can't do anything in the area. It just flies by until it gets to level 7. And I personally am not a fan of I don't even know if you can call it a hard counter, but I mean, the ultimate's effect is so specific to certain units, and it's never really... I mean, that's what causes a lot of problems in the game, and...
I think it's on counter.
It's pretty much hard counter-ish. I mean, you have to hit level 7 first, so it's theoretically sort of situational in a way, but not really. I mean... And Big Boss saying, 3 hats is still worse for Neos than the same amount of credits in Flackers. Yeah, true. And it's definitely harder to kill those hats. And they have higher health pools.
And they can be placed on turrets. Sockets.
You can't pick up multiple hats, though. You can pick up multiple Flackers. I think you can pick up 3 Flackers before you can pick up a hat and like a tank or a hat or 2 hats or something like that. Because turrets are so damn heavy all the time.
Yeah, the carry weight is huge.
Yeah. So, blast to bits.
Sorry, what I'd like to see with Neo is switching of the ult and the radar jamming. Really, I love radar jamming. I don't know. It's when it came out, I was like, oh god, I'm gonna play Neo all day. This is crazy. But the way it was implemented is kind of bugged. I think there's really good suggestions on how to actually have radar jamming be a viable thing, rather than it just being blackout. Everyone rush to an outpost to protect because they're obviously going to cheese. Make it more discreet. And they don't really know when it happened. It's almost like Jammer, where all the units kind of stay the same, and you don't see differences. So I think that would make a really good ultimate. Increase the time.
Lessen the cooldown.
The cooldown, yes, the cooldown and the actual.
The duration of the
I think
thing,
it needs to last long enough for a good effect to happen, and also has to be discreet enough that people like. No, maybe I don't know what happened. It just kind of hit me. And I think the missile redirect, it should be changed to something more of almost like a few seconds of nothing being at you. That would be a good change. So less of a hard counter to just missiles, more of just like, oh no, I can't target this thing because it's like it's freaked out my radio or something. I don't know. That would be a good all-side bully, I think.
It sounds like an awful a super EPM burst.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Well. That's completely not about what the question's asking. I do agree with that stuff for the most part, but right now I'm gonna have to apologize to Blastabits because honestly, this question is weird. I mean, Flackers. I mean, once again, they're not necessarily the hard counter or the worst thing in the world for Neos. It's the same kind of case for the rest of the mechs. But it's just that the Neo feels it more. Once again, what I said is kind of this is kind of the only thing I have. Just maybe squish the spectrum together for this how papery the lower end mechs are, Saucer and Neo and stuff like that. So we're just going to move on to the Second question also from Blastabits. It's about how noobs use T45s. So, starting units for new players include T45s, which promotes T45 spam, and in other words, very defensive play. Bonji, how can this be changed for the better?
Simple. Remove T45s from new players' loadout. I think I posted on this kind of stuff, but new players shouldn't have anything that is stationary. Stationary units are crazy hard to use. I mean, micro and all the leapfrog. That's like new players can't do that, and like they don't know how to do mez with that either. So I think we should change it to stuff that's mobile. Either you make a T45 that works both as AA and as anti-ground, which might be a little, but we could just kind of nerf it so it's only good low-level play. So it's like helper unit. But the most important thing is you can't move that thing. The thing is stuck. So you place it, and then they try to play like League of Legends with her, and it's just never worked. It never worked.
Bonji, that your suggestion often sounds a lot like a Bucky.
I actually thought about that when I was saying it, but the whole IC thing and how fast things move, Bucky probably wouldn't work. And Bucky spam is horrible. Bucky spam is almost as bad.
Honestly, I have no clue how to answer this question because I don't know how to relate to like having being new and seeing these turrets. They're good on defense, but they can't move. Like, how would I use it? Is this a game about moving? Is it a game about just placing like defensive towers, like a tower defense? I'm not sure what would go through a noob's mind in this type of question.
Yeah, I spent some good time trying to help new players, and oh god, you watch their co-op games. It's happening less now, thank God. Maybe it's just because the people really stop playing, but they're using less of that 5 turtle fort kind of thing. That's good, and yeah, hopefully we'll see less of that.
Do you know why they actually go for that? Did you ever ask them why they go for T45s or prefer it?
I mean it's the function. You do both things, which is why I almost suggested like a function thing that does both things at the same time. It moves. So yeah, maybe, but that's a bit broken.
I don't know. For me, when I was a noob, T99s were in loadouts, and I put them in sockets because you see the unit that goes into the socket, and when you drop it, it makes this like splash light effect animation. You're like, oh, that must be good, right? So I don't know. You start out over fort with a countdown, staring at sockets, staring at units in your build queue, and I just naturally made T99s and put them in sockets because it looks like that's what's supposed to happen.
Well,
I don't know.
Back in the day, though, they had like a 50% reduction in price, and I saw that. I'm like, wow, this must be like a really powerful unit. I better spam it.
Right. That was funny. That not really relevant now.
I remember
but
my noob days. Sorry, what?
Either way, gosh, I can't keep track of chat. If someone could record questions, but yeah, I don't know if necessarily removing T45s from loadouts will necessarily do it. I remember talking to, well, not necessarily talking to, but being in matchmaking, and my partner kept. This was a while ago too, when I was just still kind of learning a lot. But my partner continually made Buckies, and the reason he made Buckies was the same reason that Tipsy, I think Tipsy was the one that said it, right? It's because they, or was it Bonji? Anyway, they cover both air and ground. I was like, instead just make tank and seekers, guy. And he's like, well, Buckies hit both. And I didn't really know what to say to that. I'd like, I guess, I mean, it might be awareness type of thing. But I also think it might be easily alleviated once we get into, number one, better balance between how turret units are used now and how they probably should be used or could be used. And in the future, we will have more campaign-like things and a better tutorial, more interactive challenges and stuff, and maybe we could even have things that teaches people how these work in the spectrum of games, and also how to kind of maybe have an interactive loadout thing so you could really get a better grasp of that and all that stuff. Okay, so it's fine. I'll move on to the next one. Whoa. Okay, there we go. This kind of addresses something that that Big Boss said in chat. So I said your name. You're welcome. But Butchers, are they OP? This is from Blast to Bits. Once again, since there was not much discussion last episode about butchers, he would like to point out that butchers are extremely cost effective, and when used against tanks like Gemini or Longhorn, they are incredibly OP. Do you guys have any thoughts and observations? Big Boss specifically mentioned butcher bombs.
I've been trying them out lately, and I like them. I really do. I don't know. I can't put my finger on why I like them. They feel like the power of a brute. Awesome. Yeah, but they feel like the power of the brute, but like the armor of like a soldier or something. I don't know, but no, they feel good, and they feel
started
accountable.
Playing today just because I knew we were going to talk about butchers, but I started trying out Bomber Butcher with Blade Guardian, and it's freaking hilarious.
Lol. That makes me want to try
damage. Like, it's just ridiculous damage.
So yeah,
Big Boss.
Big Boss is saying, well, you use
Butcher.
them like bombs, use them to kill jammers, ratchets, and RGs. So you drop 4 butchers right in their cluster. To be quite honest, I've tried doing these things when butchers first came out, maybe like a few days after, and it's not that easy when your opponent has a good ground defense. Frequently in artillery fights, they have Archie, Sonya, maybe another Sonya, AA across the freaking thing, and there's like 3 tanks. You know what I mean? So, and that's pretty much just because of the defender's advantage. You don't really have to worry about a push coming in very much. You know, just pretty much mechs dropping stuff or mechs dropping and harassing. So that's why it's so AA heavy. And
yeah, I found it was better used in smaller ended areas like middle game. I wouldn't drop like that like in any heavily defended or even a mid just because they would die too quick.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but do they have a high armor value? It's kind of medium-ish, right? So they're still pretty durable against tanks and stuff and all that.
Yeah, basically they're durable enough to, if you're smart about where you drop them, they'll do the damage that they need, but they do die pretty quick.
Yeah, so that's something I've been noticing. Like a single Gaddy in a socket just crushes them so quickly.
Big Boss.
Yeah, they have to drop them.
Big Boss is mentioning
I think that's interesting.
That in team games they can do coordinated drops of 8 butchers, which does sound kind of crazy. Like killing all 8 plus whatever maybe the mech can do other stuff as well. So yeah, it's probably not that hard to snipe them. Maybe we can increase their hitbox, or not necessarily hitbox, but like how they fit on the field. Like I know, like we at one point they made it so you can't drop heavy mines like underneath units, like they'd have to be like on the sides and stuff. So you couldn't use that broken mechanic, that the heavy mine creep bomb thing from before, if you guys remember that. So maybe something like that can help and prevent butchers from being dropped like in the middle of clusters so easily. Maybe it would be a little bit harder to micro them in. That's just a random suggestion, but apparently you guys love the thing.
It'd be awesome if they armored up on the move.
I think people are just not having a proper unit composition for them, and also, I mean, I like that they have that, again, like I said with Morty's, I like that cheap thing that is able to do a good amount of damage because of piercing, and also that melee adds nice gimmick to it. So it's technically it's just jumping, it's throwing up into danger. So it's still going to be a fairly balanced, I think. If anything, we just increase cost a little bit. Sorry, I cut off stuff. Smash.
That's okay. Oh, go ahead, Smash.
I was just saying it'd be awesome if they gained armor while moving, since they can't cloak.
That would be cool. Ew. Okay, but yeah, one thing I wanted to point out that is they are pretty darn effective when mixed in with other units, because they aren't going to be drawing direct fire a lot of the time. Like, they're really, really good at defense, because when incoming tanks are coming or something like that, and you're going to just try to defend against a push, they're cheap, very cost effective for their damage, and just drop them in the middle of all your stuff, and once the incoming tanks approach, it's a very, very effective defense. And also apparently really good. I haven't really had too much experience with them, but they're really good at fort defense. Also, you know, anything that drops usually is focusing the fort, so the butchers just clean them up and then don't get killed themselves. And kind of the same thing in pushes when they're going in with other units in support. Also, once again, not getting focused as much as if they were just butcher bombed. They are also really, really powerful. Is this a problem? Is this imbalance? I don't have a real opinion formed, but a lot of people are of the opinion that these are very droppable and very powerful. So, yeah, we're just gonna have to see.
I mean, I feel like they're a bit broken. I mean, when I use them, I feel guilty enough that I would be like, oh, okay, I'm taking that out of my loadout, but I'm not sure, because, I mean, obviously it still has its drawbacks. I think a little bit of increase will be good. What's I was going to say? Yes, infantry, the infantry mechanic, which also makes all infantry types very good. That mechanic where tanks have a chance to miss them, that's a huge deal too, so...
Right.
So that's something that makes the infantry type very good, especially in huge rushes. They even if they do kill one, like 10 more, so they gotta try to shoot like 20 shots to get them.
Yeah, anyway.
Basically, people just need to use light unit. There you go. I mean, bring a javelin, bring a
Joker. Anyone in the audience that really wasn't aware, infantry have a chance to dodge tank fire, tanks in general. So what? Gemini, Busters, Longhorn, and Armadillos. It's something like 50% a shot or 33% every shot, something like that. Either way, I think we're good with this. Let's move on to the next topic, which is specifically about strong combinations of mechs with maps and units. So again, from Blast to Bits, Angels in team games, Warthogs on small maps, and Boxers with high DPS mechs are arguably OP. Smash, do you think they are, and what can be done about them?
Yeah, they definitely have their advantages. Whether or not they're OP is debatable, I guess. It all depends on if you correctly counter them, I guess. It's the weird thing for me to think about balance on this game with all the other games I've played, because there's so many maps, whereas in most MOBAs and stuff like that, you can... Either the maps are so huge, all of them, that it doesn't matter. It just depends on what paths and strategies you want to take like that. Or there's only like 1 to 2 maps. But holy crap, dude, like, I was playing Simple the other day. I tried not to play Simple too much, but I got stuck playing Simple in a 1v1, and like this like medium level player, I didn't even recognize his name. He was alright, but he was playing Angel, and I was just like, this is the worst game I've ever played. Like, he could shoot from any outpost. He had like 3 Seekers at an outpost, and I was Striker. It was like easy enough to hold me off, and like it was just horrible. So I mean, yeah, Angel in small maps can die in a fire because I freaking hate it, and it's stupid to try and even counter unless you're Angel as well. And even if you're Helix and stuff, like, as long as they're smart enough to build a few AA, like, they're just going to take out most of what you got from one spot or another. It doesn't really matter. For high DPS and stuff like that, not so much. I feel like it's mostly just, for me at least, maybe I don't know how to counter it properly, but on small maps with the Angel, I feel like it's just unstoppable. 1v1, by the way, not in team. Team is totally different.
Well, in team games, they could have support, so go ahead.
I want to interject James' comment, if you guys are reading chat.
I was actually about to refer to that.
You should be picking units. Okay, you should be picking mechs and units based on maps. And if you want to use all the mechs, same mech for all the maps, good luck. That's pretty much what he says. So, I mean...
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that to an extent.
Well, see, that's the problem, though, because you have your mech and your loadout when you go into the game. You don't know what map you're going into. You can only vote for it. So that's my stick with that, is like, yeah, I could pick something that's tailored to that map, but I have no freaking clue what I'm going into.
Well,
yeah.
I'm going to go back to...
my problem with it is, like, so if we do know the map, so say we're playing Twin Peaks, we're just going to always play Warthog Bomber or whatever, whoever Fat8 requested. That wants balance. I mean, like, you're supposed to have all stuff equally viable within each... Yeah.
I like that better than luck of the draw, man. I've had bad experiences just being on Twin Peaks against an Angel, you know, and like me, I'm not at all suited to handle that. I'm not a Helix or a competing Angel or anything like that. It's really an issue of choosing. But I mean, if you already know that certain things are more effective on certain maps, are you supposed to just? Yeah, I really hate the luck of the draw aspect of that. I can actually refer to a forum post that I made from like 2 months after I joined the forums, asking, this was like 2.5 years ago or 2 years ago, something like that, I forget. 2, my timeline's a little bit off. Yeah, but yeah, I specifically asked, are we going to be able to change our loadout and stuff? Can we know the map first and all that stuff? Good night, Big Boss. Thanks for coming and participating in chat. But yeah, I really, really, really think that we should know the map first. And I think that's what James sort of said. Like, he responded to that, that we would be able to do that. But it's just, hasn't happened yet. And I'm not really griping specifically about it. But as of now, obviously, it is a problem. And I'd like to know the map before I play the game, so I could make intelligent decisions based on the situation that I get, besides vote luck,
You bring back bad memories of me playing Beppo a hog on Vale.
That's terrible.
But like I said, even with, I feel like each mech should be viable in every map, in a sense. It shouldn't be
in its
like,
own
because
way.
we're playing on Duel or Dust, we gotta go Triple War, guys, let's do this. It shouldn't be, that in my opinion, is just imbalance. It's just broken imbalance.
I believe it all should be viable, but I could definitely see like some should do slightly better. I mean, in terms of you just facing one other person, obviously that's exponential when it gets further into where like you have like 3v3, like the different teams you can make. It doesn't matter what the map is; it's how your mechs work together, kind of thing. Making them all perfectly viable, I guess, like it's kind of hard because they would be viable for their own reasons. So making them viable for their own reasons, which pertain to their abilities, all that, as well as how it is in the map, like they're never going to be exactly the same, kind of thing.
I think a good start. Sorry.
No,
I think a good start would be making it so all map generally the same size and same amount of play space. Just because the huge problem with Dust and Warthog and Angel is that map size, that mech density. So
yes
I think
and
that's a
no.
good start before you can actually start balancing.
Post distance
I mean,
is a big thing. I'm not gonna say that outright. So, I mean, you can have a map that's the size of Simple and make it kind of work. Obviously, it's not going to be as good as certain other maps, but the size of Simple with just because it's that size doesn't really mean that much. You have to really consider how far the posts are and how far the lands are. How far the land extends from here to there and all that stuff. Tipsy.
Yeah.
But
And I'm just thinking, if certain mechs are supposed to be good on certain, I mean, this is where really, as much as I hate to say it, the system kicks in. You can mitigate some of the effects that your mech would do bad on that map to make it more balanced, playable on that map.
That's sort of, I don't know. That's sort of playing it safe kind of thing. You know what? I'm gonna kind of attribute a lot of these problems to the ever-changing beta state of this game. It's not perfectly balanced yet, or in the close to ideal state that it might be. In my ideal AirMech, and that's kind of a weird thing to say, but it should. Every mech should be good and bad at certain maps and certain map sizes, and that's sort of the kind of concept behind positives and negatives for parts and pilots and stuff like that too. Maybe a Neo's really fast, but once again, mass flackers are really close, and you can't really get away from them. It just makes a wall. But if you mass flackers on Vale, even though the map is really big, well, okay, sorry, that was a bad argument.
Yeah, you lost your train of thought.
I'm gonna stop. No, I didn't lose my train of thought. I realized that I was arguing against myself. But yeah.
lol.
With what James is saying about what he was talking about in chat about the Party 2 system, I didn't know that. But so with the way that he's talking, it makes more sense if a mech has a harder time, we'll say, on that specific map, then that's fine. Because if you pick going into that, then you know that that's the downfall, whatever it is. If it's airspeed, then your downfall is, okay, well, I can't, rush units to an outpost or something like that. What else can I do in that? It may be more difficult or whatever, but that's you countering yourself. It's totally fine. Because in most other games, I'll just use League of Legends because that's the one I have the most experience in. But you can counter pick yourself, and when you're going into it, like in draft pick and stuff like that, if you counter yourself by picking into a champ that does crazy good against you, it's the same idea, except that now you have to think about, does that team counter me as a mech? And then you're like, okay, and what map? Okay, does this map make it explicitly harder for me or easier for me to be countered, kind of thing, which is fine.
Except, unfortunately, in AirMech, it's like several levels more complicated with different maps, different mechs, different units, different parts and pilots and all that stuff. So, Fun, guys. You play AirMech, you are in a small elite club, I would say. All right, guys. Let's move on to the very last topic because we are going very long right now. Which is from the police. It's about bear traps and their lack of use right now. So, Tipsy, why are bear traps less prevalent in the meta, despite it being cost and, with proper management, upkeep effective? What can be done to encourage its use, and should there be a tank equivalent?
Yes.
Tipsy.
That'd be awesome. Because they'd still be viable.
A giant claw that comes out, picks them up off the ground. You can't move now. Why?
Oh, God.
Just
Okay,
like a
first...
little pillar that just like lifts them off the ground a little bit so the tracks can't go anymore.
Oh, my God.
It's like a hover pad or something.
Police, when you asked this question, you should have assumed that this is what we would have focused on. But, Tipsy, why aren't bear traps used?
The question is, why aren't they used? I mean, they're still just as effective as they ever were before. I mean, I'm not sure why they aren't used.
Upkeep.
See, that's the thing. I disagree with what police says. With proper management, upkeep effective. It takes, I mean, I guess what he means by with proper management is something like moving them around when necessary so you don't have to build so many, and that's incredibly tedious and annoying for the the amount of effort and time you put into doing that probably doesn't outweigh the effectiveness of the bear trap, I would say.
There's just no... People don't want to have to think about them. Like, with them having not having upkeep, people would just spam them, and they were really easy to use. It's like they didn't do a ton of damage, they stopped whatever. But now that they have to actually think about it and factor in the upkeep, and they have to basically micro those and recycle those when they're not using them anymore, it's like, why do that when you can just, drop 2 Mortys on hold and just let them sit there?
And not to mention, mines are easier to manage because you just leave it there, hope something trips it. If it trips it, there you go, you got free upkeep. But bear traps, they're persistent.
Yeah, and
It's just people just don't want to think about it, really. Like, once it was upkeep, everyone dropped it just because upkeep's so important. I'm just saying this is why I don't see people using them anymore, as far as I can tell.
It probably explains why people don't use stasis mines either.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, Tanji's in Twitch chat.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Going down.
Tanji, come back.
Going down.
What does that have to do with Tanji?
I don't know.
You jerks. Okay, anyway, so, yeah, the effectiveness of bear traps also now. I mean, never mind. That was a bad argument because like maps are so big and there's so many places to put freaking bear traps. And using bear traps is dependent on how much your opponents use infantry, and you can't control that, and
well, I mean, everyone uses infantry. You have to kind of use it to capture outposts.
But how they use infantry is a different story because, well, I mean, in the meta, high top tiers right now, it's just about who wins the artillery fights for the most part, and you don't need to do aggressive neutralization outpost taking. You just have to win the artillery fight, and by the time you lose, all your stuff is gone. So why use bear traps if they're not really, they're not going to play a part anyway.
I mean, even in the heyday of artillery wars, people would use infantry, like tons of soldiers or tons of to get that quick outpost capture to the artillery war. This is where bear traps came in, and sometimes they were used with great efficiency.
Yeah, but that was most prevalent in the bulb switching days, I would say, and that was it. I mean, the effectiveness of bear traps at that time were just ginormously, a lot more than now, for sure, and even a lot more than maybe a little while ago, maybe even a year ago, or right after that mechanic changed. You still saw them, but I think that might have been a psychological thing from just play style and being used to use them. Yeah, and once again, if they didn't have upkeep, let's just say they took a quarter upkeep or something like that, maybe then they would be used, I would say, just because you can't afford to put a bunch of them here, a bunch of them here, a bunch of them here, just in case you have a lot of infantry attacks or spam going down on you. But above that, I don't know, man. I just wouldn't use the bear trap at that point. Second part. What?
So second part. Okay,
second part of the
question.
question.
It's kind of hard countery if you think about it.
Yeah, it is. It's the first hard counter ever put in AirMech. Infantry. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I wasn't there, but I would guess that they were put in the game because of how powerful infantry spam was. Not sure. Okay, so what can be done to encourage the use of the bear trap? Anybody?
I think it needs to be more of like, well, I don't know who originally had the idea for it, probably James, but the way I always thought of it was like it should disrupt like creep pathing and things like that. But having it just take out one, like it's visible, you can see it, and it costs you an upkeep, so that's not going to happen. So what people have used it for is to basically just block bunker doors of their fortresses, but it's like, well, now you can do that with just infantry, which you can then send on things or bunker yourself if you want. So to make it more viable, I mean, I don't know, it's almost like the functionality would have to change. I guess you could make it super cheap and like half an upkeep, but I think there was a bug with half upkeep previously, but I don't know.
I'm actually going to make that an entire separate question about how upkeep works, or not question, a topic. So, but yeah, I would like to see that. Maybe not next week, but eventually. So let's get to the fun part of this question. Should there be a tank equivalent? I know you guys kept saying it over and over, but trap.
Do it.
Tank trap.
Yeah, why not? I don't see why not. There's no cool.
What if bear traps itself just kind of trap tanks?
What if they
just make
grabbed
a bigger
onto
bear
tanks?
trap that doesn't deal damage. It doesn't have to deal damage. It could just slow them or not slow them, stop them.
No, they can deal damage, I think. That would be cool. They would just like drag on and constantly bite them like they kind of do with infantry, but their effectiveness would be less on tanks, obviously, but that would be interesting to see.
Just wrecks their tracks, so you have to like constantly pick them up and you can't recycle them because you feel bad.
That would be hilarious. Or if they basically just turned a tank into a turret by stopping their movement, so you are just forced, kind of like what he said there.
But I feel that would almost like a badge of the heavy mines route, you know what I mean?
But it'd be hilarious.
You're forcing whole push to stop. I don't know. It could be dealt with infantry spam. Sorry, I was reading. I saw the word tank. I freaked out.
I mean, it's not necessarily like heavy mines. I mean, it's probably gonna make the other team have to be more micro intensive because you have to pick up the units, you have to move them around you can't just tell them to push and go to the next outpost. You gotta pick them up, get them out of there, pick them up, get them out. Now, okay, now go to this outpost. Oh wait, there's more. Sounds like disrupt the flow.
With heavy mines, it frees up that upkeep. Whereas if it was a tank trap, that upkeep is still taken, and they have to take care of it.
Yeah, it just like robs you of your time.
A good balance a good start for balance. Bear traps would be just to let them trap heavy mines too. That would be, God, what am I saying? Heavy tanks.
James, if you're watching, get in touch with your inner child with this conversation and make it happen.
Yes.
Yes.
This would.
Yes. This would.
Tank trap. Okay, guys, so I think that pretty much concludes it. Thank you, BonGeBon, for appearing for the very first time. I hope you had a productive 2 hours. Oh my God.
This is my last. Will never come.
Good.
Tomorrow's my birthday.
Once again, Smash, thank you for attending, even if you weren't able to be here for the beginning. Quite a lot of contributions, and I was really glad to have you for a more extended period of time than previously.
Yeah, no problem. I try to be as possible, but it took me forever to get to work this morning, so it took me a little bit longer to get home.
It's cool, man. We got you, and that's all we need. Tipsy, always a pleasure, sir.
All right. I want my free sub, though, next time. That'll be 4 times.
And Tipsy, no. And Insomniac for being here. Thank you, and you suck. All right, guys. Thank you for watching AirMech Talk. We're making this a weekly thing. If you have any questions, I'm sorry we didn't really have too many people to keep track of it in chat. But I will try to go backtrack in chat as much as I possibly can. Where how Twitch keeps track of it kind of sucks. But I'll try to read back and see as many as I can, so we can add them to the long list of things that we want to cover. But we'll try to keep doing this weekly. I hope I can do it almost every week. What?
I tried art.
Yeah, I know.
Uncharted's art. Are you?
Let me just. Okay, but anyway, I'd like to try to do this every week. Thank you everyone for watching. and attending, participating in chat, participating in Mumble Chat. It's always very much appreciated. Anyone can join. If you want to be a panelist, let me know. You preferably would have a good mic, but I would like to have as many different people on the panel itself participating in the actual discussion. A nice variety. And so if you're interested in being on the panel, please let me know. And our very special treat.
New people.
Oh yeah, new people. That's what I want to see. Please, people, please. If you want to talk, I will be glad to listen. Even if you're not a top tier player, even if you're just a mid-level player, it would be really great to have different perspectives from different people. So